So it's a special privilege to be able to share Divrei Torah on Zos Chanukah, Yeshua Rabbi Black Shalita, with what I called before a joint session of Congress. We have the Kollel LaHorah, we have the Kollel Elyon, we have my regular daily shiur. We're getting together to learn. We're all learning the same parak and the same minyanim. So I decided to talk about an isolated topic, so not in the order of any of the groups that are learning, but an important topic which has ramifications beyond Ribbis as well, as we shall see momentarily. The topic I chose, so the Maramakomis, is a brief section in the Gemara Masechta of Messiah Daf Ayin Beis and Aleph. Torah Rabbanan Shtar Shekosel Ribbis Konson also Benagov Velos Akem Velos Ribbis. The Rav Meir. Chacham Omen Govas Akem and Govas Ribbis. Makamif. Okay. The Meir Sova Katzina Hetera Misham Yisura. Rabbanan Sarvelo Katzina Hetera Misham Yisura. And the Gemara is a comparison. Shtarchol Mukdamim, Psulin, Muchorim Sherim. Why the Psulin? Because the Govim is Manarishan, etc. And there's a Machlok Shanuyer, a Meir. Even Rabbanan, Zera Shem Yigvav is not a Rishon. That's the whole Gemara. It's a Tosfos. We're going to skip the first, for time constraints. We're going to skip the first half of the Tosfos. Go to the second half of the Tosfos. Tema. Amai Eina Eidim Psulim. Talk about a star. Star has to have two Eidim. They should be puzzled. Keven she'ov malos סימן. אף על פי שאין מרוויחים, יש להם דיפוסל. Meaning to have a variant, ochon levelos lahachis, the kaimelon, kabayet, one of the six, the puzzle. Period. What's going on? How can the shtar be worth anything? The Eidim Absulin. Says Tosus. The Eidim Farash Kigon, Shein Ribbis Mefurish B'shtar, Elakos of Stam Ploni Chav Ploni Mona, for Kilo Akaran Ima Ribbis, Vaidim Loyodo. Oh, very simple situation. So it says $100. How are they supposed to know that it was $90 loan with a $10 Ribbis? They have no knowledge. Of course they're not puzzled. They know nothing about the Ribbis being there at all. Can't be. Tim Cain, the Sabach, the Ka'amar Rabbi Yochanan, the Mold, the Rabbanan, Bishtar Cholam Mekdom, Zera Shem Yigva Mizman Rishon, Hachanami, Nigzor Shem Yigva Ribbis B'Torah's Karen. You made a mistake, they can make an easier mistake over here. It wasn't denoted in the star that some of it is in fact a Ribbis. V'yei lo manami, Fakir, the Kavan Sheribbis Mefurish B'Shtar, Ein Eidim Or Malos Simun, Kavan Sheyodim Eidim the Beth Lo Yigvu Ayodam Ribbis, V'chein Ashtar Kosher Fakert, Fodet Nabba Masnisin the Eidim Ovin, Hainuk She'ein Aniga Ribbis B'Shtar, V'yodim Eidim Sheish Bo Ribbis, right? It can't be. Because the high shtara gufe amina beperik aminiach, our situation, and above Basra too, the mishas ksiva of a leshuva doesn't make a difference. They won't collect at the end of the day. Right now, you signed, ready, you're over those ksiva. Yishlomar, Ari hacha b'ribis d'Rabbanan. Oh, b'ribis d'Rabbanan. Lo mivstu b'yisud d'Rabbanan. Why? Keven she'ein marvichim klum. Afal pi shebaver d'Oraisa. This is the Chiddush, Ribbis d'Rabbanan. No, he's the Rabbanan. So if you're Marviach, you're Rosh the Chamas, for sure. But if you're not Marviach, then it's only the Rabbanan, then you're not possible. Inami, I feel the Ribbis d'Oraisa shta'achshe. Why? The Shema lo sisim with the inchi b'malva mashmalu v'lo b'yedin. They didn't know that. Where do you find precedent for this? If they didn't know, they're not there. So daf hamen beis and amesechta lo sachma the inshi lo dami mashmalu. Period. Adka. This is the just many terutzim we read already. Just Tosis, and we'll see if we have time. Other Rishon give other terutzim too. Just wanted to go over with the Chaburah Kollel some of the ramifications of this Tosis in Ribbis, of course, itself, because we're learning Ribbis, but also it goes beyond Ribbis too. And this, of course, this halacha is described in the Rishonim and the Achronim. Let's go slow. So Tos says all these kashas, gives all these terutzim. Fine. It's interesting that they don't know about the use of Los Simun. They never heard of it. They don't know. They think it's only going on the Malveh. That wouldn't be such a terrible amaratzis. I would suspect you ask the average person in the street, maybe even certain yeshiva boys, they would think that way. It's a little obscure, tucked away somewhere in the middle of Ezel Neshech. That's not true. So I wanted to read you some of the highlights of the kuntras of the Mishnah Melech. I call it a kuntras. This is only half. It takes up 8 pages in the printed out, so it'll be easy for me to read. It's only the half of the Mishnah Melech on Perek Dal Alachavav. You know, he wrote these humongous essays which were appended to the Rambam. He wrote them as independent essays, Kayodua. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mama Valova has more than the average area of these humongous, it's not the only, Shua says some of them, huge pages and pages of Mishnah Melech on one little Rambam. This is one of them. So there's a lot to be said, and we'll be sharing it liberally from the Chochmah of the Mishnah Melech today. Okay? It's important time to talk about it. It's Chanukah. Just read the shout about the Mishnah Melech, and watch. It talks about the following issue. When you don't know about something, how much do you have to not know about in order to qualify for the kula of the Gemara on Hayim and Beis, where the Gemara tells us on Hayim and Beis that they never know about Sachmo. Right? That's the famous Tosfos quotes it over here. Lo Sachmo the inchi below Nabi Mashmalu. That if you give the money to buy you walk down and you walk into your friend's house with a wheelbarrow of cash, you buy the house. What do you mean? I came with money. How can if I don't give money? If I give money, that's what the average person thinks. The average person is wrong. Okay, but nonetheless, since the average person thinks that way, he's not going to be postulated. That's a Mefurish Gemara on Hayim and Beis. The question was, how far do we go with that principle? Oh. So I'm reading to you a highlight from the. I'll give you the Dibra Maschels in the Mishnah later on. One Dibra Maschels V'hinei Kol. Okay, fine. He starts by saying, Kol mashkasam the b'munach shtei chaluchos she'edei Ribbis ein lokin. There's no malchus on it. V'gam kol mi she'en loker and an ifsel min Torah. He's with 2 assumptions. There's no malchus. Why no malchus? Well, the Gemara talks about no malchus at the very beginning of Ezel Neshech, 11 into class A. That may only limit it to the Malva, maybe even to the Lova. What about the Eidim? So they say, the Chinuch writes, if the Malva is not going to get malchus, it makes no sense that the ancillaries, the Leidim, are going to get malchus. He's wrong. There's no malchus. Number 1. Number 2, to call me in a local and listen to Torah. The Rambam says to Beferish, who's a psul eidus min Torah? Lav sheyesh bo malchus. Why? Called a Rosh. Torah calls him a Rosh. Clearly. Torah Tosh Rosh 8. Torah calls him a Rosh. Hoya bin calls a Rosh. So if you get malchus, you're a Rosh, and if you're a Rosh, you're psul eidus. But if there's no malchus, it wouldn't necessarily be psul eidus. Fine. Others disagree. Quotes it Limukei Yosef, who says, it's based upon the Ramban, on this Bryce of Shtar, Eidim e psulin, kol chayim e malchus psulin, kabaye, the melobin and Rosh Hashanah, right? Yeah. What does he hold? Number 1, he holds the Eidim Ribbis, achayim e malchus, dafka malva, but Torah is Shavon, abel Eidim, no tzatikin Shavon, so therefore, they would in fact get malchus. Malchus. Something even the malva gets malchus in certain cases. We're not going to go into that issue now. Fine. So that's what it seems that the Richayim malchus according to the Limukei Yosef. Right? He says, how can the Richayim malchus to Lav Shein Bo Maisa? Some disagree. He means something different. He means that even though you don't get malchus, you might still be psul eidus. Might still be psul eidus. The Gemara talks about it, the Rabbanans. Of course, no malchus by the Rabbanans, but the Oraisa, which doesn't get malchus, there are some people who say he would, in fact, would be psul. Ayin B'Maisa, the famous machlokas, the extremes. Those are not going into details now. The Maggid Mishnah on one hand, the Chinuch on the other hand, opposites. One says as long as it can be a Maisa, you don't give with no Maisa. One says as long as we not be Maisa, not give with a Maisa. And then there's of course the centrist who hold that depends if you did a Maisa or not. He goes through the whole thing, which I'm not going to go into right now. Oh, then it is as follows. The Ramban, the rule is based upon the Ramban. Sheposel Eidem Achasulim B'Shtar Kollel Ribbis B'Shul Sfilei to Kol Chai Ve'Los and say Stam Psulim and Torah. But we're not high enough for sure. Maybe it's only with the Rabbanon. Maybe it's only with the Rabbanon. Toisus quotes out Toisus. They hold either the Chai Malchus, one is, or Kol Sh'ov Losase Psulim Al V'Gav the Lekha Malchus, as those who inferred from the Mukhe Yosef. Okay, fine. Some say here's possible for a different reason. Avirosam be'inyan edus asmo. Haviko edim she'idu sheker the psulim and the edus. In other words, an eid sheker is possible, but because by definition it's part of the edus. It's not exactly the same. Shani hasam the b'masha nuchoshtem as edim shev she'idim sheker for us to have era kazu al edi ribbis afshe avirosam be'inyan edus. True. Lo havi dumid the masha nuchoshtem also. It's different. And how do you know? Because Tosin Mukhe Yosef wanted to pass them, had to say, pass like Abaye, don't Rosh Bechomos. If it's like Edus, even according to Rava, he told him it was possible. Oh, fine. And he goes on and on and on. And then it's all one paragraph, by the way. It starts with the words Hinei Kol. In the middle of the paragraph, he starts discussing what I want to talk about right now. Of course, Tosis, they don't know about Lo Sachmo. They thought Lo Sachmo. Shusarav. The lo sachmo is only if with no money, with money there's no lo sachmo. Okay. Watch this. Tosus means that according to the Mishnah Melech, Afal pisha tom hayarol lifsal osam mid rabbanon. The question becomes, on the Ham and Beis, they're not posted at all. Namid Araisa and Namid Rabbanon. What's the answer? What's the answer? He gives as follows. This is his first real chiddush I was saying from the Mishnah Melech. Shani hecha shem yodim shesh isur bi'oso ma'isa kagon chamida ela shem echalkem midata dahainu dafka with lo yov dami oz hu de psili mir med rabbanon according to that understanding. Aval hecha shem toan de me'olam lo neslam isur zeh oz afilim med rabbanon ksherim tumur de ribbis. If they don't know if they know there's an Isser, then the problem they don't know, if it's possible with the Rabbanon. If they don't know about the Isser at all, then they can actually be kosher. And there were those who apply that principle in many cases in certain situations, which we're not going to go into right now. The next question is a question which is very serious. We all know from the last Amud in the Perek, there's an Isser of Lifnei Evil Osita and Michshol. If the Eilos hit in Michshol, is the laws the same in the Torah, and the question will be, maybe they should be nifsal the edus because they are in violation of the Eilos or hit in Michshol. Oh, I'm reading now again the same Mishnah Melech, the Ramasal Kosa V'Rav, as follows. Hod Armin and Eidim Kshem Mishud Lomashul Yisur Shem Avei Beloheim. Oh, excuse me. He would have gone through the loan anyway, even without these Eidim. Otherwise, typically, the Arvel Lifnei Iver. End quote. If the only reason that the loan took place with Ribbis is because of these Eidim, Isa the Rais Lifnei Iver. Mashma, the Sfir, excuse me. So it would have happened anyway. The Meshumhai lo mifsali. Yeah, he quotes an earlier source. He wants as follows. Lav lifnei iver nami mifsal. Mihu. Ma diyama eid apostle min Torah. Ela malav shesh bo malchus. Pshita shein apostle min Rabbanon. Liba de kuliyama leka malchus malav lifnei iver. Why? It's a lav shein bo ma'aser. Quotes from the Sefer HaChinuch. And he quotes from the Kesef Mishnah, Nuchas Eidus. But there were those who want to disagree at this point because it's considered an oror. An oror mashk iver badarach. And of course, if it's called an oror, that means it should be puzzled no matter what. So he goes into that discussion, He says, but lav le'iver ein bo chiyuv malchus, lav she'ein bo meiser. He's going into this question of lifnei iver, a very serious question, and the post can talk about the fact that even if there's no lifnei iver, because it would have happened anyway, there's an issa we call misayeya, that they over avera, which is itself an issue. There's also an issue of a michshol derabanan a lifnei iver d'oraisa. Minchas Chinuch talked about it famously. There's also mixes into this, which I'm just giving you references. We don't have time to go into all these problems. I just want to open the Ramban himself and see what he says. The words of the Ramban are important. It's true that the Rav Yosef quotes it. What a whole Paul's forum. See how many of them I open. I like to see things from the original. It's always good to see the original sources. So the Ramban quotes Tosfos here on the Ayin Beis of an Aleph, and he has his own opinion. V'li nireh Ribbis d'oraisa hamalva v'alova v'oreh v'edim kulam nifsolim. The real apostle, as the Rav Yosef quoted, in his name. The real apostle. And there's since I'm using the Mishnah Melech as a source for everything, Deah, the Ramban Kollel of Divrei Tosis, starts with the word Deah, Usvir le de'edin de'solim, shom de'avi alav de'los סימן, maybe Ribbis mefurish or Kollel, and the Rav Yosef quotes it. He doesn't understand, but others seem to misunderstand what the Rav Yosef said. I'm not going to go into that right now. This is what he says. V'hacha, v'she'ein o Ribbis mefureshes b'shtar, ubo shnayim v'amru, k'sav yodem uzeh, ava Ribbis ha'yasham, v'lo yodu heim, manus machos nefashos, v'chein heim asman she'amru v'mokom v'she'ein k'sav yodem yotzim v'mokom acher, k'sav yodem uzeh, ava nisu yinu v'chasan the Ribbis. Uma shechriyu v'yamu, shem ha-Ribbis eina mefureshes b'shtar. Name of Gzeira Shem Yigles Ribis, can I mean Shem Yigles Mizman Arishan? Tosin suggested this that they rejected it, because if this is true, as the Gemara later on Beis says that in the question of Shtam Muktam, we say it's possible. Why? Because if you don't be careful, it's going to collect from the Lakuchas from earlier, and if the whole star is completely puzzle. Here too, if the Ribbis is not noticeable, may actually collect the Ribbis, so they should be puzzled with the Karen too. That's what Tosfos proved that this can't be the case. No. Eina machras. Why not? Tahasa migavi mizman rishon harei kol aser shetarven al lekuchos shlo kedin kol hamomen. All the money he took from the lekuchos is illicit. Avokan afilu yigves a Ribbis ein bo isur bekeren vafilu tarfen al lekuchos shekeren nitan likasei uveribis yesh bo isur. Rabbanon lo kansi hetera atarisura. This is why he says the teretz which Tosfos rejects, he accepts. That he paskins that in point of fact the Edom are psulim. Edom are psulim. That's what he says. Finished. Some say the shtar would be possible again. Shem Yigva Ribbis. They disagree. Shtar of muktam is possible. For the same exact reason. The Rambam makes a distinction, as we said before. Now, there are those who say, again, the apostle only if the Ribbis was clearly designated, so they knew there was Sar and Ashtashish for Ribbis. And some said exactly the opposite. They're only apostle if it's Kollel B'Keren, because otherwise they're going to collect it. If it's Mefurish, there's no Chashash, and they're not apostle. Tosfos suggested that before also. They're not possible because we know it's not going to come to the Geviyah because the Ben is not going to collect it. That's all. Finished. If it's Mefurish in the Shtar, we're not afraid you're going to collect it. And you're talking not puzzle. You're not puzzle at all. This once again, Tosfos said Beferish you are puzzle. Again, Tosfos tries to prove it. But Bekam with Aflam and the base, B'shas Ksiva v'lei Shuma, and others disagree. How they disagree with that Gemara? If we have a chance, we'll get to talk about it. But the Mishnah Melech discusses this also. Everything is in Mishnah Melech, almost everything. I want to bring that to you from what he says as well. Let's take a look. Find the right piece. Old Ika Taima starts with the Old Ika. Lahachshir Eidin, Port Nagos Mordechai. So Avri Eidin Mishum Los Siman, El Hecha Shenim Mefurish B'Shtar, Ribbis, the Dilma Osir L'Chlal Gaviyah. Abel Hecha Shenim Mefurish B'Hedja, the Osir L'Chlal Gaviyah, Lo Choshev Los Siman. Tosa disagrees, based on the Rabba Bakama. On this brisa, Shtar Shekosel Ribbis, the B'Shas Ksiva of Yeshiva, Mashma the Avsha Mefurish Ribbis, Ko Avri Los Siman. Ben Chilik was a Ben Milva Le'edim. What do you see? Milva Bal Peh over Mishum Lo Siman came in the Efsh Lo Asad L'Chlal Gaviyah Lo Avri. So this is Machlokas HaPoskim. Is there or is there not a psul on this basis? We're in point of fact it is found in the shtar. Okay, fine. Then I want to quote a sefer which I was supposed to Josh about. You can't find it anymore, so I brought it from home to show that it still exists. You see this? We grew up with this. The Yuchas L'Ritva they call them. As my son's name is in it, must have gotten him from one point in time. Within the Rebbe Shir, Rav Willig. He left me a set. Oh, who uses the set anymore? Well, the new Ritvas. But this you can't get. So that's why I brought it from home. To show you it still exists. If you need it, I'll lend it to you. Okay? So the Miyuchas L'Ritva has two very interesting terutzim which you don't really find anywhere else. So I put on the Rambakamas. You know? A lot of wisdom here. We still don't know who wrote it. Anyone know who wrote it? Anyone discover who wrote it?
One of the Chachmei Provence.
Okay, Chaburah Provence. Okay, good. So we listen to where it came from. So that's helpful. Here in Ayin Beis and Aleph. So the Ritva, again, the Miyuchas the Ritva has two different answers. That's fine. Even this has different prints. So he has different answers he suggests to this. He says, it's true. There is a psul of Los Siman. But you know when it takes effect? When the money is collected. When the money is collected. Until that, they're not possible. Let me do the words. He says, Sadi lo mifsli at shah shigiver, aval shuma lo mifsli, lo mechayim v'shuma k'rab nechem Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, the Savi the shuma la milsi hilchos l'kavasayim. He calls it from a Tosfos. So in point of fact, there would be a psul, but not a psul until later on. So when they signed the document, it was still a kosher document. Interesting idea. Come back to another version of it soon. V'yistim etarzi. The olam afilu k'sasav Ribbis b'shtar mamish l'mifs li'edim. Why? Nemonin lomar, amazing, ala keren chasamnu v'lo ala Ribbis. A Ribbis lo chasamnu. V'keren havigavim medina d'shtara. Wow. Isn't that amazing? We only signed on this, and we didn't sign on that. Where do you find such a thing? Oh, he didn't make it up on his own. It's a Rishalmi. Rishalmi suggests such a possibility that you can say, I signed on this, and I didn't sign on that. Either I wasn't paying attention to it. They were talking about whether it's Mukdam, it's Rishalmi and Shvius in the last parak. I didn't pay attention to the date. I didn't notice that the date was Mukdam. No? This is a good time to talk about it. People want to predate their charity checks. Get involved in that. The rabbi wasn't predate my charity check. Okay, but we're not going to that right now. So I didn't notice. Who notices the date on the check? Okay, fine. This is the Miyuchas Ritva. Oh. Now, the Mishnah Melech, I told you, has many things to say, but towards the very beginning of his lengthy treatise, I'd like to focus on one or 2 points. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that there was a psul midrabanan. So the Gemara says in Masechet Sanhedrin, this is very important halacha l'maisa, that a psul midrabanan typically only takes effect with a hachraza. What's a hachraza? An announcement, literally an announcement. The details of the hachraza, I brought a Shulchan Aruch, Choshen Mishpat Chos Eidus. If you have a chance, we'll actually open it up and see some of the details of hachraza, where they do it, how they do it, what about nowadays, if they do it and how. And this is extraordinarily important in many cases that we deal with, because sometimes a person is posel the Eidus. And let me tell you that in our line of business, beyond the issue of Ribbis, sometimes we want it to be posel, sometimes we want it to be kosher. So it's a little bit tricky, you know, to, how we play with this. But let's just try to see what the truth is, okay? And then we'll figure out what sheetahs we can rely upon in either case of exigencies. Okay. So, psuli edus require hachraza. Okay? So the Mishnah above talks about it at some length. Right, so I'm going to give you a few highlights over here. Watch. Okay. The Rishonim are assuming Ein Psulim HaTorah Midrabanan Lakata Kashi the Posel Midrabanan Boy Hachraza Ve'em B'Dahai Braisu Ma'arib Lo Achrizim Aleim. Why? No one says that. Toast didn't say that. No one says that. Ve'ev Shaloma Ad Kan Lo B'Nin Hachraza Psuli D'Rabanan Mach Masavera D'Rabanan Av Psuli D'Rabanan Mach Masavera D'Oraisa Lo Boy Hachraza. It's a machlokas, the marimat and the marchash. I'm not going to go into all the details that he's describing over here. That's number one. Keep that in mind. What's the din of somebody that in avera deraisa, but it's possible with the rabbanon? For example, there's no malchus, right? Number two, keep in mind. The Muki Yosef says, the time of the psuliyos the rabbanon b'achrazahu shum takonos lekuchos shlo yachtem al sam b'shtaroseihem, as the Rambam writes in the Chos Eidus, shatam hu shelo la'abed zchus ha'om shelo yodu b'pisul zeh ve'pisulim b'divreihem. Okay, v'hocha lo shayach lomar shechachamim tiknu achraza shum pseidet the malve this bum. Me'achad hu hoyasibas pisulam b'yei deseh pshita da'achad lo tekinu. V'dami, here's what I'm getting to. Some achronim say the b'milsa de isura lo be'inan achraza shum lo shayach tamid takana. Whoa. Here maybe, even those who disagree there, will admit here, he was sibas psul edim edu shebo lahadim lahadim. So he's saying two different prongs over here in the question of achraza in these cases. Number one, maybe we should say that the only time you need achraza if the entire psul is the rabbanon, but it is the entire avera is the rabbanon. But if the avera is the rice and the psul is the rabbanon, you don't need achraza at all. That's one suggestion. A second suggestion is that you don't need achraza except whether the lekuchos are going to lose, right? But here we don't do it because we find some who say we don't acquire achraza when it comes to matters of iser, no lekuchos are involved, and even if you reject that, but here the sheminot takana to assist the fellow who was the cause of the psul in the first place, the bad malva was laying out the money we in the first place. So for two different reasons, he suggests that maybe we should say over here you do not require achraza. Everyone follow what I'm saying? Now, of course, this has ramifications, as you can well imagine, way beyond Ribbis. Way beyond Ribbis. So I brought a sefer, which is probably, have this inscribed copy, especially if Mordechai likes it, Mishpat Ha'edim. The inscription is from my friend, Ovadia Yosef Toledano.
You just put out a new sefer, Mishpat HaYerusha, 3 volumes.
The one.
Yeah. Yerusha, 3 volumes.
3 volumes. I can't keep up with this man. He's like his grandfather. I mean, he just keeps writing and writing and writing and writing. I got to know him. Okay, so this is given to me from Tavshin Ayin Vav. It's already Kislev. Kislev Tavshin Ayin Vav. So it's figure out how many years ago that was. and he gave me a copy of the Sefer. I just want to read you a little bit because I think it's such a fascinating idea. I wrote on the page number here, Kuf Tes. Oh, Lav Shema Malchus, Lav Shema Maisa. We're discussing is he puzzle, he's not puzzle, because you have to have a hachraza, etc. Good. More is a kani, more in Zatzal, Ravaja. Also, Mamachnisin television the Sochbeson. Umavir Zman b'Maras Negoyim u'Masirim Ozna b'Shmua Torah. Hem bichlal b'Kidvar Hashem Baza. V'Hashim Litin Esadin. Ve'efshe Shem Psulim Li'edus. She'ovrim al lo sasur chelevav ch'machrei nechem. I'm reading to you. Imagine. Then he says, Shafila over Allah v'sheva tasa, apostle edus min Torah. Kol shekein, osam sheyeshem gehenim electroni hanikra internet b'soch besa, hamov al'avri pipachas, v'sanu b'shal shalosh shel barzel l'shmor mishmeres l'mishmeres psuli edus dinam. No one's going to fall asleep for this. Probably, I think we're all possible.
He has email also already.
Oh yeah, it's also in here. I didn't pay attention to that. Okay. Wait a minute. Wait. Slowly. Suma the Rabbanon, he says. It's not Midoraisa. Who are you quoting? And Eino Nifsal El Achiach Rizu Olav. And he says he passes La'alacha from the Maran Bet Yosef. Shekain Adin After Milsa de Isura. There were those who disagree. We just read it in the Mishnah Lamech very briefly. But he goes into a whole discussion. I'll give you a brief synopsis of it. This is on page Kuf Tes. On page Shin Yud through Shin Yud Gimel. There's 4 pages on this very topic, which is so important. Hakrazak is Advar Isser. Okay? The Marit, the Mechadesh, is quoted in Mishnah Melech. That's a moment, the kuchas. But Isser, no, you're apostle. When you're achrazat, Rosh b'mammon, content for the kuchas, the Rambam says, okay, labis chusa, milsa di surah, lo shayach haytaima, shereheim ru'uim me'asim below achrazah. Period. Quotes in the Mukha Yosef, who wants to suggest that lo bin achrazah mishum pseder the lekuchos, etc. No lekuchos. And he quotes a Radvaz, Lo Amin Hachi Elab Eidos Momim, Yisur Balechovas, not Isser, and he wants to make a dig from the Rambam. He do call Meshachriz Walla Bekam also Kadei Shlo La'abes Chusam, Shlo Yodu Shu Posel V'Psulim V'Divrayim. So you see, it's only for that purpose. And he quotes other poskim say the same way. Ibra, Ayin Bet Yosef in the Tshuva, Kiddushin Siman Yud, 8 Kiddushin Shavar Averes Rabbanon. My the cost of Nami Ploni is Posel Yedus. Yeah. No, the Rabbanon. Yachroz the Bebezin, Lo Achriz Olav, Kosher Afilim in the Rabbanon. So Maran Ben Yosef is more important than all the other people who disagree with him. He passes like the Rav Yosef. Beis Yosef, and that's what he passes Halacha Lamaisa. Bottom line, Lamaisa B'Zman Hazeh. He says, this is a story that you have to have Achroz. Now, there is counterpoint of an Aruch HaShulchan who says now we have no koach lahachris nisparse berabim she'osa averazu havi kachroza v'yos kavimenu edus. From that point on, I wouldn't even entertain you with this, except it became sadly very lemaisa. I say sadly. I'm only going to make references to it because some people may have forgotten about it, never knew about it already. There was a sad case of Osasur, Achrei, Nechem, big time. But I mean, beyond belief. And this individual was, I don't want to give too much of the story away, but you probably know what I'm talking about. He was involved in Gerus. And Gerus, of course, involves women, most guarantee are women. And voyeurism, I don't know, mamish, all of Surah Nechem, with all the hidurim. the Aver in the worst possible way. Shem Yirishma V'Yirachem. And the question was, all the individuals who were in this Gayer, from the moment, before we knew about it, didn't know about it, from the moment we heard about it and they started this terrible thing, do they have to require a new Gerus? So I was asked to write about it. I wrote about it in a piece which came out in the tribute volume to Rabbi Shechter Shlita called Ateres Tzvi. That's where it's printed. And I called our good colleague Rabbi Yonah Rees Shlita, and his Kanfe Yonah, with a lengthy piece trying to be matzdik b'di'evet that these Gerim don't have to undergo a new Gerus. It would be staggering if we had to go to every one of those Gerim and Geros and now their children by now, and to require each and every one of them to do a Gerus alone. Yes, we try to find a heter with the Rabbi David Yitzchaki, whom I never met, but he's a prolific author from B'nai Brak, if I'm not mistaken, who critiqued Rabbi Rees quite sharply. And I wrote that we have to rely upon Rabbi Rees's kulas, and one of them was this very point, that Lo Sesurach Elavavchem is a lav she'ein bo malchus, she'ein bo maisa, and there's no hachraza. And at that point in time, with no hachraza, we followed the Beis Yosef. You have to have hachraza. On that basis, we said that maybe other psulim, not for now. Maybe it's possible as a dayan. That's a total different story. And we had to be nitchak a little bit more to be machshir b'di'evet. I wrote there that if someone comes over to me and is willing to do another kiyur l'chumrah, I would encourage it. But that means they have to want it and they have to be from now. Sadly, sometimes a Yoreh falls down and now they're no longer showing mitzvahs, so you can't do a new kiyur l'chumrah. So, well, they just don't want to do it. So I think we have to make a bikkur with it. This is why I'm saying these halachos are not only limited to Ribbis. They have significant applications l'maisa in our real world. In our real world. Now, the Tzos talks about it. He says something quite remarkable. I brought somewhere the fancy Tzos. There it is. It's in the Mishnah Lamal too, but I wanted to bring it to the beautiful footnotes. It's in Siman Nun Beis Sif Koton Aleph. All about our topic. Shtar shesh bo Ribbis. So it says where it's found. He calls Tosas Kasha. Okay? He calls the Mishnah Lamelech. Can't read the whole thing, this is too long. Oh, he makes a point over here. This is an important point. He says, when the Rambam says, Eizer Rasha, Kol She'over Aver Shechayav Al Malchus, Lav Lemember the Lav Shem B'Maisa Shem B'Malchus Lo Psili. Tim Kain, Kol Lav Shenita L'Tzoros Misas Bezdin, or Shenita L'Tashlumin, L'Nid Glasei, or Lav Shem B'Chlos Shem Logan Lo Yip Nifsel Liedus. Zaino, because the Rambam says, Gonav O Gozal Shulav Nid L'Tashlumin, O Osa Malacha B'Shabbos Shulav Shenita L'Tzoros Misas Bezdin, Sheposel Liedus. Ubishlam agabe gazan ganavel gazan hainu time and mishum davi Rosh the Chamos. Okay, chemdas moments its own category. Aval asa malacha b'Shabbos lama yiposel cave in the eino loka. V'chitema the Irish hisibol the malchus or hisibol the misa zeh doch agodol the hisibol the malchus yifsol hisibol the misa yifsol ayin sham. So he wants a paskin ich possibly without malchus tamua ma'od. Says the closest quoting. Tamur Mo, Ganav Gazan, Ramak self explained it in the Chosedis. Yesh Rosh Hashem Psun Leidus Alfi Shem B'nei Tashlumin, Lo B'nei Malchus, Hov Alokim Momen Sheina Shalahem, B'Chamos, Postal Shanema Yikiyokim Eid Chamos B'Yish. I Malacha B'Shabbos. He explains himself in the Rambam. Hezu Rasha, Kol She'over Averish Shechayav Al Malchus, Zeh Rasha. V'nifsal leidus, Torah Kollel Mechuyev Malchus, Rosh, as I told you at the beginning of the Chaburah. Shenemar, V'yem ben hakos Rosh. V'yein tzarech lo machayv Mrs. Bezdin shu posel shenemar asher hu Rasha lamus. Finished. The person who was asking that didn't read his rabbis carefully. The mavur leheja the guy mechuyev Mrs. Bezdin nikra Rasha utmeana ech nelem kol zeh mehamayan hagadol knes hagadola. Okay, kushes mishal melech vaday kosher. Kevin dibin chayvei malchus dafka. Oh. Well, maybe the malva because he has hashava, but the Ein have no hashava. Flosa Simon, maybe get malchus on that. But how can it be to lav shem go ma'isa? Well, the Mishnah we sign a star, it's considered to be a ma'isa. Or I told you before, because you have a ma'isa, the chinuch in the Maggid Mishnah. Okay, the cheschiris chasam b'kol loka. As the Maggid Mishnah ain't ba ma'isa. Shani chasima came in the Yeshiva ma'isa. Gomer ava chasima b'kol ave ma'isa. That's the opposite of the Sefer Chinuch. I'm not going to go into that right now. I want to go get to the main point I wanted from the Tzos HaChosh. Uvika kusha shik shekos chol v'shol leidim psulim never liyashev. Oh, it's chidushin. What's his teretz? Because the Toys and Chun daf Yudal Raman Alf shochet b'Shabbos shchitoso k'sheira. Why? Tavim mumul l'chal Shabbos u'shchitoso psula. The best Toys kasha. Tirtzu b'Toysvis shon. The b'pam achas lo havi mumur. Weiter. V'horan in the chidushim daf Yudal from Chun says. Kevin she'ein nasa mumar ad gmar shchita ein shem mumar olav ela me'osa shechita ve'elech. There's a riot from the Gemara later on in Masechta Chul. V'yim nire says the Ksos hu adinami Kevin de memilval pelu avri or edem alosa simun. Why? The Kevin the efshlo also the gevir lo avri the davke bedish v'shtar avri. He's assuming that from the moment. Look at Mishnah Melech. He proves that from the Mordechai. They're not over in the middle of Baal Peh. In Cain, Kevan lo avri ela b'shas chasimason lo nas upsulin ela b'shas chasimason ve'elech l'mashachoson ve'hechsheru v'ashtar kosher. How do you like that? An interesting teretz that the Ksos gives to this very serious question. Wow. Of course, the problem is the Mefarshim ask against this the Ksos. Tosfos is talking about becoming a mumar, psul mumar. We're not discussing psul mumar over here. So the Mefarshim explained that the Ksos just quoted Tosfos for reference, but he's really relying on the Ran. The Ran is a different story. Tosfos says you're not going to mumar b'pamachas. The Ran says until after you finish the shchita, and then until after you finish the signing. That's what he means at the end. And why is it important to say? Because the Nesivis, doesn't take anything, just doesn't give him a pass on anything. So when the Nesivis, I only have the Meshovev in front of me, but he quotes the Nesivis here, the סימן and base. Actually, I have the Tzos in front of me, the Nesivis in front of me here too, but I'm going to try to save time and not open it. There we go. He says like this: that you're talking here about the Tosa Shita. No, Tosa Shita is only about becoming a mover. Only mover over here. So the answer is he's talking about the Ran Shita. So the Ran makes more sense. Oh, but then watch this. The Nesivis has an interesting question. You know what? I think it's worth opening the book. I bought it already. Let's open it. Dvarim Tmuim. The aim Marai B'Shchita. The Sham Muma Bina. Muma is Chazik. He's 3 times according to some. Alarai the Rosh B'Shasha over Avera. That's question one, and the only answer to that question is that he did quote a Tosfos for reference, but he really meant the Ran. Fine. Good. And here's as follows. Oh. He brings a raya as follows. That the Rambam writes in the Kosa Beis Osius, right? Lo nasa ver rak achar shegama kol chasimaso, afilu hachi haget botel midoraisa. Behold, neid lo nifsel rak achar chasima. Granted, for a moment, mikol mashtar puzzle. Why is that? How can that be? He's not puzzled after he's fine. Why should he puzzle? The Riv Kosa gabe Chosa masa b'shtar asher nasa chasana the kono shesim tavas ededim lo mahani quoting Shulchan Aruch. And b'tam the Kosa of Iran perakam begaresh hod the kosher bein chasima levad the shemoser bein chasima hein edim misira u'mikoshken hochad b'shtar sheish bo Ribbis sheyadua shemoser liad ha'baldin achar shenifsal v'chi agav if you nasa chasano kon shebo edim shetecha b'achar chasima kon shemoser afilu leloven nasa chasano vaday the puzzle afilu la'akdeya do anan edim misira anan ay the edim chasima mishum deheich bo liyoda vayna al kochach the edim edim shemoser liad ha'baldin avak shenasu psulen bi'odem biyodam man meid shenimser ashtar liaralove o again liarabal dilma hein miyasun masul liarabal ve'isha kem shenasu karov apostle kodem amasira ukzeres akosavu shoyuna mon l'shem davar anan shemeidim al amasira ipe'edim psulim meidim. This is a shasin over here. We learned Gittin. We know that Rif held that Eidei Chasima are good. The Ramban holds because Afei the Mesira, and the Ran famously says no, that the Eidei Chasima are in effect doubling, if you will, as Eidei Mesira. But how exactly does that work? So here in the Mishovim of the Sivas, Lo Kosher Midi, he quotes what the Ran says. This is the words of the Ran, and I quote. My the mother of Belezer de Chasima Mahani Haina Mishum the Sfilet HaMesira Koreses Kol Shesh B'Shaita Eidim B'Dover Bein Shem B'Eidim Al HaMesira Atzma or Guf HaDover Ume'ata Mashem Moder of Belezer de Geta Chosen Beidim Kores Afa Bishon Nitan Nosen Beidim Mesira Shera Get Yotzi Mitachas Yada B'Eidim Alolu Uv'Yodua Shabal Mesoro Lo V'Nimtzu Ki'ilu End quote of the Ran. This is famous. This is a world famous Ran. Hainu says the Ktsos Pshat in the Ran. Fisha anu roan aget ve'eda chasim b'yad ha'isha. How to get there? How to get there? Anan sadim b'mesiroso v'anan edim b'mesira ad eida chasima. Teda dimchosnu edim umesu v'chakach mesaru lo bo bayom the vaday kosher. The anan sadi shabo get me at a bali yoda. V'anan have edim mesira. Who are dedim defslu achar chasima? V'chakach masul yoda anan have edim mesira. Is that pashut? Pashut. But the Nesivas disagrees, as he correctly points out at the end of the footnote. Nechakul rabbeinu v'Nesivas, but divrei Aran, divrei Nesivas hey the chasima hey edim mesira. V'im nifslu amesu l'fnei mesira lo have get. Rabbeinu the Ktsos holds no. The anan of edim mesira. This is something fundamental. I mean, it's more than it's have to get than in Ezel Neshech, but it ties directly into what we're saying over here in our discussion. Okay, this is very, very important to understand. Fine. Just moving on to try to go back, circle back, and finally, at the end of the day, we'll open up the Din of Shulchan Aruch here in Hilchos Ribbis, Siman Kuf Samach Aleph Sif Yud Aleph. That's where there's actually found the halach. And I read. Shtar sheyesh bo Ribbis, ben shel Torah, ben shel Devreim, goves akeren levado, v'hu she'nika shel Ribbis. The Mechama passes has to be nikar. Aval Eina Mefurish, Ela Kollel HaKeren Ribbis, Eina Gova Afilu HaKeren. We know Tosas Shita at one place says this teretz, right? That's again, there are different opinions. That's the psak of the mechaber, Now comes the Taz with his pshat. Humafurish b'shtar the imlokein. Listen carefully. Harei ha'edim psulim sh'tirishoyim shemeidim shechosmu al iser. That's the Ramban. Not like Tosfos. Tosfos edim and psulim for 10 reasons. Ramban says they're psulim. So the Taz understands over here that we're following the Ramban. I don't know. The Ramah's expression. Again, Nigash Ribbis, Kagon, Shumafurish Bishtar, HaKeren B'fnei Atzmo, O, Shlo Nichta Bishtar HaKeren, Ve'edim Midim Al Ribbis. V'chomisha Bol Yodo, Yikra, Rip the Shtar, the Chashinin Shem Yikra Al Ribbis. That's what it says. Explains the Taz once again. Rak HaKeren, Pirish, HaKol Nichla B'Torah's Keren, Ve'edim Lo Yodu, Sheesh Shom Ribbis. And She'edim Achem Yodim Sheesh Kan Ribbis. And then over there, Pasuk Ramban. So he's the Taz in two places is saying that they were following the opinion of the Ramban. Comes in the Kudas HaKesef and says, wait a minute. Wait, slow. Lo dok, he says. It's not correct what the Taz says. Adrabah, das hatur v'shulchan aruch v'ramah the lo Ramban. And they were like Tosfos, v'rosh, v'Mordechai, v'gos Oshri, u'shapolskim to edim lo nifslu b'kach. Why? Lo סימן lo mashval inchi ela below ve'omalve. U'kshein Ribbis mefurish b'shtar mo d'Rabbanan lo govi HaKeren the chashinin shem yigva Ribbis b'Torah's Keren. And Mechaber and Ramah says it beferish in Choshen Mishpat Siman and Beis that we just read, and Siman Lamed Al Sif Yud Mashma the Einay Nifsolim. So he has a stark attack against the Taz. The Taz claims that we're passing like the Ramban, and the Kuras says that we do not pass like the Ramban. It's wrong. It's wrong. I go over the Keren, not because Einay Mapsulim, because of Achshash, you may go over the Ribbis mistakenly. That's what he says. He says it again in the Shachir. It's of Kod Yudzayin. For Ribbis of the Asmo, Gabi Afil Min Mishabdi, for Edim Lo Nifs, Lo Afil Ribbis Do Raisa. You know why? Those Siman, Lo Neshech, Lo Mashval Inchi, El Belovo Malva, can cause what Toisus, but when Mitzia Darfayin Beis, Rosh, Varov Poskin, and the Chama Chosh Mishvat Lamadal, the same as he said in the Kuras HaKesef, he says it in the Shach as well. There's a thing called the Hagos Hatas. Ein lefarish, k'mosh niska betur, HaKeren levad, b'shtar, uval peh midem edem, shapos Ribbis. Dim kein kosher, masha kosher Ramah, al zeh, shemisha b'yod yod yikra shtar, to b'shtar zal nikla niska HaKeren. El hakoch och tekeinu ha'perish. Memela ein chiyu, ein chayav lo el HaKeren, ubal hashtar yigva kol v'mashmo shel shtar, and avi edei sheker, u'rishoymein, V'liwas afilu HaKeren al piem, aval mefurish Ribbis lo yigvu ha'bez in Ribbis usvara zuhutzka b'Tosfos that we just read before. Pegaz nezla vayin beis. Tosfos knocked it out based on Baba Kama Daf Lamed. Yesh ha'koponim lav l'sisit mishas ksiva over leishuma nostu tam heta mishad psulim leidus chmachas lo simen b'malva mashvalu yesh ein shem chashash l'mikoch edim rishoyim. This is Shaykh Afil Mefurish. Al Zeh Shaykh Atam Lo Mashnu Kiim B'Malvim. Al B'Chashash Te'edei Shekerei Dimina Adover Advar Avera V'Zeh Sagei B'Mefurish. He has an old different pshat over here in Hagos Taz. Two different things. Interesting. Even Hagos Taz, which comes later, didn't get away with it either because there's a Yad Ephraim who's not happy with that either. The Yad Ephraim says as follows. Quotes the Taz. Sorachin, v'chiyez in Ma'ar Mechaber, the Maskana Shekosav, Avlam Einem Mefurish Elash Kollel Kever Ribbis and Gov Afil HaKeren. Ein lo ba d'Amarida Edim Acheren Meidim. שהעדים הראשונים יודו, גם כן, שיש בו ריבס. And therefore, the psulim, בלבד שזה דוחק, כאיכא חוסר מן הספר, according to the Taz's trial. אבל below זה, יהיה שלום מכן. The traininu. 2 against 2. ודווקא בהזמה, חידש שחידש התורה להמן האחרון ותפים הראשונים. אבל בקוש אינו כן. ש"ס בה בכמה אין בייס. ויתמה, ד'אמריקא הראשונים מודים בזה. They will be molded to us that yes, they testified writing a star. In the case when they knew the Baal Peh, there was Ribbis. Oh, the awesome Einem Oelas, Lasos Nafshem Rishoyim. Can't make itself into a Russia. According to the Shach, Elyon Nifsla Bazeh, Im Ribbis the Raisa, Lamash and Inshi, Lova Mava, Nicha. According to the Taz, who says Beferish, the Psulin, Im Loken Lehem Asim, Omer Sheish from Ribbis, Hey Psulin, Ve'enim Ne'mon Nifsal Asmam. So there's Sarachim, but Dochar have to say, the Mechab is referring to a case, the Malva, the Lova, Modin, Bedover, Shenichlal, Karen, Ribbis, Beli, Deah Edim. Wow. This didn't bother telling the Edim about it. That's not Shaddochar, it's an Ukimta. Ach, Zeh, Gav Kein Loma. Tim Kain, Ein Abo, Rachmas, Hodos, Malva. V'loma Konsul, so, Shnikva Filu HaKeren, Hamodin Beknasu, B'tzorachim. It's all fascinating understanding of what exactly the Mechaber and Ramon meant over here. I thought the other for everything he says makes sense to me, but Taz a little bit shrat. I think we prefer the Shach shrat, but there is a Taz. They have the kashas against him, but he does say, unless you want to say the Taz didn't mean it. When he said the Ramban didn't mean that the apostle is a star which has Karen Ribbis. He say that it's possible, not because they ate him absolute. Okay. It's interesting. The machlokas, the Ramban Tosis, what's the psak? So the Shach says it's a svega de dina, whether they ate him absolute or not, and therefore, ein lahotzi mammon, im tofas, ein motziin biyodum. Ein motziin biyodum. Okay? Fascinating. So I wanted to show you what some of the contemporaries say. So I brought in one of the beautiful contemporaries from called the Chelkas Binyamin. Here we are in Kuf Samach Aleph, Sif Yud Aleph. And this is quite lengthy, just a little piece I'm trying to pick out. So the Mechaber says, Go V'Sakeren Levado. Okay? The Machlokas of Mechaber and Ramah and Choshen Mishpat, Isa the Rabbanon, Yivina the Ovid Mission Chibud Mammon, and he quotes the Gidulei Truma, commenter on the Sefer Trumas, which is a comment of the Ramban. The after Ramban on Nifslu B'Ribbis the Rabbanon, and it sounds away from the Ramban and on Sugya. I just read you the Ramban before. The Mishnah the Melech says B'Tchila, tells you to look Maskell Ule Inyan. Let's see if I have that here. It's hard. There's so many paragraphs here. Maybe difficult to find it quickly. Ule Inyan. I think it's towards the end. I guess we have different Dibra Maskels. I don't see Ule Inyan on any of my Dibra Maskels. Okay, I'm reading it from here. Listen carefully. Mitzadeh betchiloso the kavanos and mishum the less they chibud moment, because the Adam don't get any money. El shavem is dinzeh b'machlokas shnuya. Therefore, you rather say Ribbis the Rabbanon Trei equal the Meimas Chaburah Satoisus Davik Shogegim Lo Mashvul Yisur Adam the Sarvid Lo Godz of Chachamim El Lamav Velove. This will chibud moment. End quote. Ach kosher. The Mefurish Liel and the Gedulei Truma right there. Ribbis the Rabbanon, the Edom lo mifsali, Neisha Edom arvichim klum. That's the first that he suggested, and that's what he means. Obviously, what he means here too. In other words, lo sfirla the mechas hashitazu, the af lo chimin mammon nifslu. The Mishmach is shver. He didn't see the other part of the Gedulei Truma. Then he says, look at the Shach, calls Gedulei Truma, calls the Ramah, and Simon Lamadal from Nun Beis Lamadal. Haven Devar Koshikosabno against the Mishnah Melech. And Yadina, it wasn't Machriya. Okay? Fine. So you see from here, by Ribbis, the Rabban is an Easter on the Aiden. Tosa says so, the Rosh says so, against the Chavazdas. Okay? And he goes into a whole discussion over here, what would it then be, halacha l'maisa, in this kind of a situation. Oh. But now, the question will be, can the Adim say, this is important, can the Adim say, we just mentioned it a few minutes ago, but from the other source, can the Adim say that we knew about it? We knew about it. We knew about it. Or should we say, Ein Adam Mason Asmo Rosh? We're not going to trust you to say they knew about it. Be'edim Chosman Sheyodim Shesh Yisr V'Davar Psulamein. What's the suffix? Im ha'edim hem ne'monim lo ma yodana shesh Yisr. This is the matter of a Kosav. Afal B'gen Chasamnu. Minei mo de'edim ne'monim Mishav de'edim Mason Asmo Rosh. Odilma lo domi. The shani hecha shehu mahave ha'isur, the oz eno neman. Amal hecha she'isur minu beinenu. Lo mi pima nuchayim. Ela she'ilu tolin shema lo yoda shamaisa azehu isur. Oz efshe de neman aloma. Shasa isur biyadiyah. U'l'chorya niralu yish limut deh. From the Mukha Yosef says in the Sanhedrin, Hu kanu kivuroi. Remember they used to bury Anyon the Rishon, and they put him in Chayrim. Right? They didn't come to a complaint to the Chachamim. They thought, L'shem mitzvah niskavnu. Masha de b'mezid asu ad kan. V'yama denim ne'monim. Ki l'bolov ne Chachamim. Mayavi, akati efshe shebetchila shogegim hoyu. V'chakach chosru behem v'amu shehem bezidim. Yesh l'chalek. Ben hecha she'onu machrichim adav mipkoach umdana. V'mipiem shel edin. V'hecha she'edim atzmam bohem l'hoy l'hasan she'asu v'yisum b'mezid. Oz denim ne'monim. He's not sure what the din would be. He has to look at the Masas Binyamin. Fine. Bottom line, we said you have to rip up the shtar. You have to rip up the shtar. Why? Because it could lead to a takala. So the ritzvah, the real ritzvah. It's not just only the Suda. We have to at least have one quote from the real ritzvah. Talks about this as well. V'chachamim omrim govim esakeren pirish afilim in chosim meshubadim. Fine. Ayin the Tosefta says shtar shesh b'Ribbis shebalabezin yikra'u to rip it up. That's Rav Meir. We don't pass like Rav Meir. Inami Rabbanon u'chsharibis mefurish bo u'das Ramban the mashvilu edim psulim. So of course, if the Edom Psulim, you rip it up. Of course, it's from the Mordechai. That goes Ashri. Koran Hashayim called the Rabbanon. Vishabal Ashtar over B'kiyumo. Ayri B'shtar Shus Mefureshes Bo. Yeah. It doesn't say Ribis Mefureshes Bo. As the says, Mashma Afilu K'she'en Ribis Mefureshes Bo. Vishahem and Asuga Behem Shem Devarov. Look at the Yerushalmi, the Mefarshim. That this sounds like the Tosef is only called to be Meir. That's the first terrace on the Ritva. Of course, Hagosashri even called to the Rabbana. Just look carefully. Hagos is referring to a shtar. It was Mefureshes Bo. Sefer Truma was not Mefureshes Bo. Goes into the details of when we have to rip the shtar and when we can actually hold on to the shtar. So this is found again. We've quoted the Taz so far. We quoted from Sivkot and Zion and Sivkot and Ches. What's Sivkot and Tes? V'kol mish yesh b'lo yikra shtar hatam over b'kiyumo. Beis Yosef had a different nusach, a mistaken nusach. He had lashon there oved b'kiyumo. Aleph vav beis daled, not ayin vav beis reish. So it was a sad typo, and the Beis Yosef spent a lot of time defending this typo, and it's just wrong. It's wrong. He defended a wrong a wrong text. A wrong text. Okay? Well, because the Beis Yosef understood Oved is referring to the Love. What do you mean? They're afraid they'll make a mistake and they'll collect the Avak Ribbis. And that's what the Rambam suggests. But if you're going to rip it up, why should the Malva lose out on the Keren? That's not fair. He's entitled to the Keren. So the Chelkas Ben Yamin talks about that too. Says something which makes perfect sense. I haven't seen it in the other sources, but I think he's right. You have to rip it up, right? Fine. Why do you have to rip it up? Why? Because you're afraid that the Malva will take the Ribbis, so you have to rip it up. But if it's not written in the shtar, you shouldn't rip it up. How do you know this? How do you know there's Ribbis there if it's not written in the shtar? Another reason for the past. Malva over b'kiyumo shechayev l'kro hashtar with the proper text over. So it's isa b'kiyumo. Okay. So here in his bottom, yesh l'chor takef. Rip it right away. Yesh l'or lama lo yoed chila edem al hashtar yeshiyuchlu la'agid bebezin masher b'shtar al hakeren. Efsha, you're right. The be'emes tzorach lasos kain. Before you rip it up, make sure you have a Gavias Edis. They say exactly what the shtar said, so then he shouldn't lose out on the Keren, which he is entitled to. There's an interesting thing which could happen. It could really happen. A Fruma Yid, his father was not Frum, and his father had a shtar with Ribbis, and now the son has a shtar with Ribbis. What do you do with it? What do you do with it? What do you do with it? So you can collect Ribbis, you can't do. So what do? You make some kind of a heter iska. Can you hold on to it temporarily? So if every day there's more Ribbis, you have to write in the shtar right away. I'm a vater on the Ribbis. This is I found in the Achrot. The Ramah says there's some will say we make a knas on the malveh, and even if the love admits, you don't collect. I want to read you from the Ramah in Choshen Mishpat. It comes from the original source in Hagos Mordechai. A remarkable. This we're going to close with this. Again, in Choshen Mishpat Siman Nun Beis, the very beginning, Sif Aleph. Again, the Mechaber says, "Shtar shesh b'ribis mefurish, ein agova boa ribis. Avon gova sakeren. Afilim mishabde. Avon kollel a ribbon keren ima ribis. Puzzle meshav yavo legvos boa ribis. Fine. Umiu im achayev mode tzorach l'shalom lo hakeren. V'yesh om de potter. You hear what's going on? The guy admits to the keren, and he's still potter. Shouldn't take the money. The kansina. Le Malva. We tell the Malva, even though the law is Moda, Hodah is Baldin, you shouldn't take the money. If you ain't so l'shalom lo. Anaya Maisa. Why should this be? Where did it come from? The Taz says, Lo matzisi mishasovike. Who says this? What do you mean? Who says it? There are those who actually do say it. And the question is, what do they say? And to what extent do they actually say it? So there's a discussion in the Mordechai. I bought the somewhat fancier version. It's actually Hagos Mordechai. Siman Tov Men. There we go. For a minute. Tov Amid Tov Mem. a lot of water over here, but there is a possibility that we make some kind of a knas, and we say, even if he's molder, shouldn't give him the money. Okay? Shouldn't give him the money. Dr. Moshe says over here in, this is in Choshen Mishpah. Let's take a look at the Dr. Moshe here in Yoreh Deah, Kuf Samach Aleph, that's our Siman. Oh. Kollel goes Mordechai. Afilu alov emoda bekeren, afilu b'nechori lo govi. Afa keren, if we call a keren in Ribbis, b'shem de kansinan le. Chen mashem dasat tur shekos of stoma. The Marik says no. Nechori govi im alov emoda lo. O yesh lewedim ala keren. She'en govi mikorach hashtar, naf kivina shel yivim mishubadim. So this is a remarkable kind of a knas, which they say that no one said it, but someone did say it. It says so. It's often a Darkei Moshe. And as a matter of fact, there are those who still can't believe it. The Shach over here in Sifkot and Dalet. Lekaman da'amachi. No one said it. But we just saw Gos Mordechai. I mean, no one said it. We just saw someone who said it. You know, the Shach Kedarko. No one said it. No one said it. Oh. He says as follows. The Vadai in Havi Rai Mishtashish Baribis and Shtarchov Mokdomim. So Mishtashish Baribis, Sfira the Ri, and Govim Nechori, Afal Pi Shalov and Modeh. That's exactly what the Ramah did say. The Pshat Lishna Datosvis, Agos Mordechai, Lo Mashmah. He says, don't read it that way. I told you it's a little vague whether he actually said it or didn't say it. He said, nobody says it. No, the Shach says, nobody said it. They passed the shtar, like a shtar muktam. That's what it is. But Yegove, even according to Tosim Abakam, even according to Rameh Yegove. May Yegove. So it just meant that, so what's the case? A brilliant idea in the Shach. We'll call him no Kimta. What's he modeh? He's modeh that the shtar is legitimate. However, he claims parati. Oh. Whole different story. He claims parati. So normally you're not believe say parati, but in this case you believe say parati. That's how the Shach understands. No. Okay. So in this context, we'll just end up with the last nakuda. These two swerve. The Chelkas Binyamin on this sif. And Kollel HaKaren in Ribbis, Eino Govabo. Okay? Eino Govabo. Fine. Ube'iga din zeh, Shem Kollel HaKaren in Ribbis, Tashtar Puzzle, Yesh Estapek, Im Nama Gam B'Shtar Shel Arkos, Shel Nasa Be'ofen Shir Neskabel Be'Bezdin. Go and Hitiu HaBezdin, it's all over Arkos. Niwa Shor Le'ozi Shtar Zeh, the Efshor Shezeh Nami B'Chlal HaGzera, V'Aknas, so Yishtamish B'Shum Shtar, Shekollel Bo Karen Ribbis, O Dilma HaGzera Medina Shtoris, Mele Shtar Shel Nasa B'Kashus Klal, Lo Shayach L'Mifslei, V'Hochi Mistaber, Tzorachil L'Maisa. We had a case once, a crazy case, where there was a din Torah. Everyone's from Shama Mitzvahs. They were fighting about a certain amount of ribbis that the guy didn't pay, and the Bezdin is sitting and listening to the case. This is mamish. Looks to us at first glance, it's ribbis tzutza yotze b'dayonim. Reuven wanted $100,000 from Shimon, and we thought that Reuven should pay $100,000 to Shimon. At the end of the day, I think we said this, maybe it's made with a check might be a Ribbis Ktsutsa, so then they called it a wash. And the guy was so upset, well, where's my money? A frum here, the Shomer Shabbos, a very frum rabbi brought the case to us, and the guy walked out. People just don't realize. Business is business. Mamish, a Shalom Shabbos Jew, was simply dealing in Ribbis. And he was so incensed, he wanted another $100,000 that the guy reneged on, and we almost made him pay $100,000. We thought that might not go over so well. I mean, we were told that many poskim say that checks are the Rabbanan, and Avak Ribbis is not Yosei V'dayonim. Oh. It's interesting. The Pashup Shad of Shulchan Aruch is that even Avak Ribbis Gozru ain't a Govas Akeren. It's not like the Shach suggests from the Gedula Truma that you go. No. But the Shach says something which is quite remarkable, and we have to be careful in what he said and what the original idea was as well. Where am I? This is the final point. Where's my shit? Kuf Samach Aleph, the Shach Sivkoton Chaf. So Shulchan Aruch writes, "Ein a golabo afilu akeren." The Gazmin Shem Yigu Ribbis B'Torah's keren. Miu hechet halova moda yesh omen de gove. Look back on Siman and Beis. The cost of B'Shuvas Masas Ben Yom and Siman Lamed Daled. Listen carefully. The Mikom Makom Ein Tzorech halova Litein Shum Dova Meharevach Sherviach B'Mos Malve Afilu Reviach Harbe. Ela Shoror LeKonso Litein Meharevach LaNiyeh Ha'ir. Such a strange psak. I'll repeat it again. Ein Tzorech halova Litein Shum Dova Meharevach Sherviach B'Mos Malve Afilu Reviach Harbe. What's this all about? We're about Ribbis over here, obviously. And the Masas Ben Yamin said only when a case of Shor Tzricha Lekach. Shor Tzricha Lekach. And as a matter of fact, could be that the Shach also meant that. If you look in the Piskei Tshuva, here, back in Siman, Lamed Beis, in Chosh and Mishpat, Sivkot and Aleph. Watch this. Oh. Maybe you should give that money to Aniyim like you find by Shtar Shesh Ribbis. What does that mean? What does that mean? Migdal Milsa. What is a Migdal Milsa? Migdal Milsa, they have the opportunity to make some kind of knas on an individual. Like Shtar Shesh Ribbis. But only in certain specific cases. Hagam Hashach Yoreh Deah Shem Kosa B'Shem Masas Ben Yamin Siman Lamed Daled Sheroyer Liknos Alova Litin Me'ar Revach Ani Ha'ir Ach Beguf HaTshuva Shem B'vur Ledya the Dafkoim Yesh Migdal Milsa Shashot Tzricha Lekach V'Akochein Gam Kavonas Hashach Kechi Asher Kitzur Ba'atoko Kemedino Didan Shekofa V'Shilesh the Leka Migdal Milsa B'Dover Ein B'Yodea Lekonso Klal. So the Shach didn't quote it properly. And he goes further than that. He says that in certain situations, the suggestion is made that you kansa all the revach, not some of the revach. In other words, the Shach took liberties in calling the Masas Binyamin. He said only part of the revach, and he added Aniyah Ha'ir. That's not what it says in the original Masas Binyamin. So my final point is a bit of a Musa point, where Rav Moshe has in his famous Horace in the back of Yoreh Chelik Gimel, he has a Horace on Perek Ezo Neshech. This is a Ora Chavav. Shach Masas Binyamin Lo Muvan Klal Hoim Yitain Yavim Midoraisa B'Lavin the Ribbis Ben alova ben amalva. Do ha ribbis ketzutza. Chi amokom litos v'loma the ribbis ketzutza im reviach lo yavu alav in the ribbis. Ha poshim the kol isur the kol is ribbis after lova is ashlei avoso. I borrow money for you, and I'm not going to give you back the ribbis. Of course not. It's a pasuk chumash. Have a poshim to borrow shaf be'avah below ribbis v'reviach harbe who asked the matana feel called the misim rabbanon the ribbis mucheres. Umaros Ashmena was there, Torah and Gadol. He says, Royal the constant in the Merevach Ani Ha'ir, Tamuaksas. The Nei Sha'af Shlomatzina Shik L'Sulalova, Al Sha'ava Lav Lo Sashich, Philif Naiver, Shi'asham Ariba Shakotas, Ach Lo Lahamal Ve'el La'aniyim, Efshashum Mechadish Visoras Atzon the Konsom, Kadesh Lo Yavar Pam Acher, Alisa Lo Sashich Philif Naiver. Abo Ein Ze Knas Klau, Limona B'Shvul Zeh Me'Yisur, Holova af adat l'shalom Ribbis b'cholofen af sheyafsid umuchan dilbos b'choleis al Ribbis k'mo shosem an nochrim v'over averet mi Yisrael v'anoshim ksherim mi nochem b'Ribbis b'cholofen eze towelas yim izeh sheyomu lo shidim erevach sherviach eze chel gani ha'ir adrabo yesameach miknas chazeh tiyach shel b'dato shike heter b'zeh shenosen chelim erevach avur Ribbis shekotzen l'hamalveh. He'll clear his conscience. For afim lo yita efsha sheyachshav sheyelo kapora mizeh. Hu kahod the pirish Ramban and Chumash tam beisur est on the mizbeach. V'hevish raboseinu v'skiru mushal etc. etc. Os v'torah est on the choneda ki ata yosifu lachto shechosh v'shetim ze kapora. V'chein l'chora lo tov liknos came to Sorach Yego. That's where he ends up. Now, it's a very big kasha against the Shach. If you look at the original Masas Binyamin, where you take away everything from the Revach, that's taka, a real knas. So it's not going to be a slap on the wrist. Then it's kasha, not to be kasha. We'll stop here. Freilich and Zos Chanukah.